for fast, cheap, and reliable Madden 21 Ultimate Team coins. Make sure you guys go check out my sponsor, Easy Mutt. Use code VENOM at checkout for 5% off. Yo, what's good guys, Ben on Fire here back with the video, and today we're going to be bringing you guys another one of my favorite defenses to run in Madden 21. It's going to be a man coverage scheme. Man coverage not super good right now, so I want to show you guys something that you can mix in on a play-to-play basis. And just one of my favorite ways to mix up the man coverage from something that you usually will see. So we're going to go ahead, hop straight into it. I'm actually going to be going against like the gun bunch tight end today. So again, another new offensive formation to be facing. First things first, we're going to adjust our zone drops, and we will be in the 4-6 defensive playbook today. You're going to leave your auto flip on. You're going to go ahead, set your curl flats to really, it depends. Now, for this defense, I would suggest changing it based on what your opponent is doing. I could see where you would want to go anywhere from 10, usually around 15 to 20 yards. I wouldn't really go above that. I would consider this more of a short distance type of a defense, but really you can run it anywhere, of course. Again, 4-6 defensive formation. We're going to be running this 3-3-5 wide, as you've seen in the thumbnail. We're just running some stock cover to man. So go ahead, set that up in your audibles. And then, of course, in the 3-3-5 formation, you can get these safeties at linebacker. Your user is going to be here in the middle, so that's why I threw Xavier Woods there. But, of course, get safeties at those other slots as well. Also, before into the video, make sure you guys do go ahead, smack that like button. Also, subscribe to the channel. It's free, and you can always unsubscribe at any time. Definitely is the best way to support me in the channel. But we're just going to come out in like a stock 2-man under in the 3-3-5. Again, we're going to be running some bunch tight end today. I'll go over some of the setups, but yeah, let's just get straight into it from there. Of course, we're going to set up the audible system, so we're going to go ahead, press that X or square button, D-pad to the left, and then X or square again. You see, we're also going to go ahead, press our defensive back. So, as I mentioned, we want to go ahead and use our Xavier Woods. Now, if I'm using Xavier Woods, you see he's manned up on Kenny Golladay. We're going to have kind of two separate setups. I also want to say that. But the first thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is just shift my D-line for the run defense that I like to run. For the run D I like to run, I'm going to shift to this left-hand side. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. Now, I'm going to make an adjustment. The first thing I'm going to do is man up X on B. The biggest reason for that is just because we want to have our user available to defend anything, not just be focused or spotlighting Kenny Golladay there in the slot. The next thing that you're going to do is put both safeties in curl flat zones, and then the last thing you're going to do is put A in a vertical hook. So here's a look at the defense. You got a vert hook, you got two man coverage zones, you have man coverage across the board. Of course, we have that slot receiver man up on a safety, so you should have some good speed, some decent coverage stats there. And yeah, this is pretty much going to be the first way that we run it. I'm going to set up like a PA boot over type of look. You'll see B. If they release A, I can go back and defend that. The deep post should be defended pretty well. And really, man coverage is still very good in this game, pending they have like a route technician or something that's going to burn it. But as long as you're press, you usually want to shade over the top as well. I didn't mention that. But as long as you're press, shade over the top, you should be able to stick with him. Again, it's usually going to be 99 speed versus 99 speed at this point in Ultimate Team. Depending on regs, of course, you always want those fastest corners, so make sure you sub those guys in. But yeah, shouldn't be very much open. And like I mentioned, this is probably not an every single down type of a defense. I would recommend just mixing this in. Of course, zone coverage is the meta. You probably want to run a little bit more zone coverage, but as far as this is concerned, I feel like you can mix it in a lot, especially at unpredictable times to catch your opponent in. Maybe he's trying to go for a zone beater, something like that. He doesn't have a whole lot of man coverage beaters on the field. Then it would be a good time to mix it in. Of course, out of 3-3-5 wide, the reason it's so good is every defense is kind of disguised the exact same way, so it's going to be difficult, even though we're pressed, even though everybody's looking the exact same, for him to know that we're actually running man coverage rather than zone. So we're going to set that up again. I'm going to audible, of course. I'm going to press, shift to the left side, which, of course, if you're run D, if you like to shift to the right a little bit better, you can do that. I'm more of a shift to the left guy, but that's just me personally. Again, I'm going to man up X on B. I'm going to put LB in a curl flat, A in a curl flat, and then I'm going to put this A defensive lineman in a vertical hook. Blitz your user, and that is going to be it for our first setup. Let's set up another type of a man beater, and this one's going to be pretty difficult to defend. If they were to go to this setup, which you wouldn't necessarily expect them to, against man coverage, then it could cause a little bit of problems. But you see, you can kind of lurk over on Y, go defend X. It's not the worst thing in the world with that vertical hook. And even with our next setup, you'll see how it could potentially be defended, which I'll go over in a little bit. But yeah, you see it's not defended the worst in the world. Even like one of the best man coverage beaters probably in the entire game. It's something that I use a ton out of bunch tight end. You see how the tight end, he's kind of open. And this would be a situation where maybe I adjust my zone drops down to 15 yards because you see how the corner out, it's throwable right here, maybe with a passing to the outside or a low ball or something like that. So that's something you want to be careful. Also, the main reason that it is open is because of the route switch that happened. So that is a little bit unfortunate. You notice how the outside corner is now going to match onto the slant instead of the tight end. And that could potentially cause some issues for us. So you see how he gets just a step ahead. But I can also adjust my vertical hook zones, which is something I forgot to mention. And I'm actually probably going to do it right now. I'm going to set those to around 10 yards. All right, I went ahead and adjusted my vertical hook zones to about 10 yards. And you can also differentiate this if you want to go 5 yards, which I would probably stay around 10 yards, anywhere from 5 to 10. 15 is a little bit too much unless it's like a 3rd and 30 situation. Of course, you never really want to go 0. So anywhere from 5 to 15 is where I would usually stay put. Again, I'll set up the same defense, and it's a pretty simple setup. You're only really making 4 quick adjustments, which you should be able to get off relatively quickly. Again, I'll set up like a PA boot over look just for you to see. Again, I'm going to shade over the top as well. Something I like to do potentially is move this guy in just a step or shade inside because I know it's PA boot over. Most of these routes are going kind of the inside, so you can see I can defend it pretty well. Right there, we end up getting a shed, and that was caused by, of course, the tight end blocking. So sometimes that safety is going to go on to become a free rusher, which is the case right there. Of course, there's not really a concrete way to defend that delay fade, as annoying as it is. But the vertical hook, kind of sitting there at 10 yards, is going to defend it for a decent amount of time. Of course, you want someone athletic there. If you can put an outside linebacker there, which is probably something I should have done. But DeMarcus Lawrence is decently athletic enough to probably make a play on that. And because he's sitting there, he should be able to at least delay your opponent for a couple of seconds before maybe being able to throw that, or at least give your user some time to recover on that. So I do think that vertical hook definitely helps in this key situation. I'll set up the setup one more time, then we'll hop into the other ways to run it. So here it is. We'll go into like a curl flat corner play. Now, I'll set up something kind of like this. Can I not smart route Y? Oh, I'm in the wrong play. But I'll set up like kind of a Z-spot type of setup. Something like this. You know, not sure what you would do with A and RB. We'll just set up like a flood concept. But this would be a setup. And again, I have curl flats at 20. It should do a decent job at defending. Of course, shade over the top. Something like this. We're going to snap the ball. You see how A's defended well. Y's defended perfectly. B defended well. The out route, of course, covered. You see the curl flats over there helping as well. So even though, again, these receivers are not super good, neither are the Cowboys defensive backs. So it is a pretty even matchup, I would say. And you see they're doing a pretty good job on a play-by-play basis at defending most things. Again, even in like a flood situation on that right side with the tight end, the vertical hook's helping. It's helping defend. Let's hop into the next way to run it. Now, this is a more riskier way to run it, but what I'm going to do is just put X on a vertical hook instead of man him up. Now, this, of course, does depend on the setup. So I would actually kind of consider this more of a red zone type of a setup. And it depends on what player he's kind of using, but with something like PA boot over, this is something that I can kind of go to because I won't necessarily have to user much stuff. So I can also go back. I can kind of lurk over on B. You see he's also defended well by like a vertical hook. You see the delay fade gets sent. He ends up getting manned up. But this is just a different way to run it. Of course, you're always going to take risks in this game on defense. This is just one of those risks that I kind of like to take. I'm not going to put anyone else in the vert hook except for that guy. And again, I feel more comfortable kind of doing this in the red zone. But you could also mix it in here. Again, it really depends on the setups that he's going to. You want to read, you want to catch up, or make sure that you understand or recognize the actual things that he's kind of going to. And that's where I can start taking risks. If I see him putting him on like a hitch or something, if he's hitching B for whatever reason, maybe as playmaker, maybe he's just doing something like this, then maybe I can just get some extra help by putting him on a vertical hook. And this would be a risk that maybe I want to take. So I can go with something like this, go ahead, snap the ball, and you see how he's going to kind of lurk over there. You see he's just defending it well. Maybe he's open a little bit. That's just because he's at 10 yards. But if I notice that, I can always move him down to 5 yards, and I can just kind of consistently keep making those constant adjustments. Now again, you can also play very good run defense. I have a lot of videos with 3-3-5 wide and showing how to defend the run. Again, usually you'll see something like this. Well, either they shift to this side, they'll slant left, or they'll shift to like the left, they'll slant to the right. Just some kind of consistent stuff like that. Again, it depends. If I want to, it doesn't really matter that I would shift to the right. The defense would still pretty much stay the exact same, where I can still vert hook him. And this might even be a little bit more beneficial because he's actually going to start out further on that right-hand side. Whereas if I shift to the left, he's kind of starting on the right hash marks. Again, won't make too big of a difference, but maybe defends a little bit more things. If they were going with this particular setup, you would maybe have to be a little bit careful if they're putting him on like the flat. You don't see the setup a whole lot, but if this was the case, this is where, again, the vertical hook setup might be a little bit better in the red zone. You see how he's still kind of defended by the vert hook, and they're really going to have to wait a good amount of time to throw that. Most players in this situation, I assume they're going to look over at B, they're going to look at the flat, and then they're probably going to move away from him. Because again, when you're playing online, you're not going to stare down a read for 10 seconds like I was kind of doing right there. You're going to see it, you see the vert hook kind of defending it, maybe he thinks it's a curl flat or a hard flat, and then he's maybe going to move on to his second or third read, and that's where we have the slant covered, we have the post covered. I'll show that setup again though. Again, and this is one of the best setups in the game, so getting beat by it is definitely not like the worst thing to ever happen. It's a very good setup that, again, I run in a bunch of tight end gameplays. If you saw that, you've seen that I do run this setup a lot. But I'll set it up. I want to kind of focus in on the slant to post combination. And of course, the motion's going to help out a good amount just because he's going to create a mismatch. You see the corner route slightly open, X, and you see how X is kind of open there. You can't lowball it because the vert hook is there at 10 yards. So if I wanted to, I could move him up to 15. I like kind of sitting at 10. Of course, if you get an athletic linebacker, they're never going to jump, but they could prevent a low ball. They're going to force you to kind of bullet pass it, and it's just going to be a tight throw. Of course, the man coverage should be able to stick with him a little bit better than he did there, but yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it for the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you go ahead, smack that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel as well, follow me on Twitter, link will be down below in the description, and peace. I'm out of here.